Hi, everyone. Welcome to Talk Tech with Data Dave. I'm Alexis, and I'm here to chat with my dear friend Data Dave about all things data, all things technology, all those things that I just don't understand, and hopefully learn something along the way.
Hi, Alexis. This is Dave Wilkinson. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of D3 Clarity, and have been working in the data engineering space for about 30 years. So happy to try and help and happy to try and, to use your term, educate and have some fun.
Get ready for a data revolution like never before. At D3 Clarity, we are thrilled to unveil our sponsorship for DGIQ East, taking place in Washington, D.C. this December. Join us to unlock the power of data governance with the ultimate survival kit of knowledge. Arm yourself with priceless insights on compliance, unleash the full potential of your data, and supercharge your capabilities. Don't miss out on this golden opportunity to evaluate your data skills. Join us at DGIQ East in DC this December. Hopefully you can swing by our booth and meet me and Data Dave. I'm
Right.
super excited, Data Dave, because we got our first listener question. Our
Excellent.
listener's name is Todd, and Todd asked, "Help! My data originates from everywhere. How can I bring it together and trust it? We have multiple systems with different formats, spreadsheets, handwritten contracts, and even tribal knowledge that just is in one person's head. What do we do?"
So this is a very I loathe to say, but common sort of question and common issue that we run into when we start looking at business data as a whole. The remember, what we have to remember is that a lot of organizations have been running very successfully on a disparate set of systems, disparate data's all over the place. This is a historical fact. This new data world where we want all our data to be cleansed and polished and nicely shiny and so on is actually a fairly new phenomenon. So the bottom line is that data is always everywhere. Data exists in people's minds, or it exists as knowledge in people. It exists as infinite information in books and in contracts and everywhere, all over the place. Data is really just evidence that people have been doing something. As companies have got bigger, as companies have got more complex, as our world has become more complex, the data has become more numerous, more disparate, more separated, right?
Right.
So that's that. We have to accept that as a fundamental first, and not expect our data to all be in one nice polished little place,
Oh
right?
my gosh, that sounds just like a headache.
Oh, it is, and but it's also true, and it's also a challenge, and it's so the more standard you are in the way that you operate with data, the more understanding you have of that, the better you'll behave and the better your data will be. What we often find is that data is disparate and it's all over the place, and the evidence of things happening in your business is disparate with the nature of the business, right? So a sale versus a shipment. I've sold something and I shipped it somewhere.
Mhm.
Are they the same thing? Are they describing the same thing? Fundamentally, they probably are. Somebody bought it and I shipped it to that person and it's the same sale. What I'm trying to get at is look at not only the data in raw form, but also what is the data describing, right? So if you buy something, Alexis, if you buy something from me and I ship it to you, then the person that is Alexis should be the same person in the sale, which is the financial transaction, and in the shipment, which is the logistical transaction.
Okay.
right?
But
So we
you just said should be the same person.
should be the same, but should be the same data describing the same thing. Often these systems are disparate, are separated. One of the things about bringing it together, bringing all this data together, is starting to look at what we call the critical data elements and the critical data and entities that the information describes, and start to be able to track this across the different systems. So is a customer the same thing? Is it a person? Is it an organization? How do you describe it? How do you know that it's the same one? So now I know the sale to Alexis led to this shipment to Alexis, and that these two Alexises are actually the same person versus different people. Does that make
So
sense?
a couple weeks ago, we dug into data governance a little bit, and you talked to me about kind of making sure the same things were the same things in the same places. And this sounds like one of those situations where,
It's exactly one of these situations, making sure the thing
yeah.
that says it's the same is actually the same. And now once you start to do that and you start to define these structures, then you can start to say, well, this spreadsheet or this system over here is describing the same thing as the system over there, right? So you can start to say, is it the same or is it different? And is it trying to be the same? Right. So we often talk about, people often talk about data lakes and data warehouses and bringing all the data together, which is great. And that's obviously a good place to start. But in doing that, you also have to start to say, does the data describe the same thing? Can I join it to each other? Can I get some semantic reasoning across it? Right. We've got organizations that grew through acquisition, and so they've acquired different businesses, one in the US and one in Europe or in the UK, for example. Well, they've been run by different systems. So now, do they both describe sale? Does customer describe itself in the same way? Can I join or bring these together in a way that makes semantic sense when I add them up?
So to roll that back just a little bit, you said that people like to talk about data lakes or data warehouses. I'm
Right.
assuming those aren't buildings and giant bodies of water.
No, they're well, and to a certain extent they are, right? They're a data warehouse
Wait, they're
is
giant bodies of water?
well, they're giant bodies of data, right? So
Okay, okay.
so so the idea is that you've got this, a data lake is basically a place where you put a lot of data with little or no formal predefined structure to it, right? So your water in a lake has no structure to it. It's not like you're making it out of bricks, right? You're not making it out of ice cubes. It's flowing all over the place. So it's got no structure to it until you take it out. Does that make sense? It's only when you
Hmm.
take it out that you take out a glass of water and it's got structure. It's the shape of the light cup, right? So, and that's the concept of that, which is place all your data in one place and then you can look at it all, right?
So
But it's difficult to look at if you don't understand it.
yeah, that was about to be my next question. So, okay, I like this water analogy. I can understand this. If you
Right.
take it out, you can put it in a glass. So what do I need to do to get it into structure?
And boy, to get it into structure, you need to look at it and you need to understand it. So you start talking about what are the key elements in it and the key entities in it. And an entity is a thing. People, place, or a thing, right? A product is an entity, a person is an entity, a company is an entity. So you start to refine or distill your water or your data into these elements, these entities, these entity structures that give you meaning across your business, across your environment, right? So you start to say a customer is a legal entity. Well, if it's a legal entity, therefore it's got these characteristics. Therefore, it can only be a customer if it's got these characteristics. If those characteristics are the same between two customers, then they must be the same entity. Therefore, this person has purchased from me twice, right?
So what you just described to me, there has to be a technical word for that, right?
So the technical word for this is getting into, in an analytic term, you call it a semantic layer or a data model that
A model.
starts
I like that word. Okay.
start to describe the model that your data conforms to, and then you can bring in all the data that now conforms to a certain extent with the model that you've put in place. Right now, when you do that in sort of in abstract sort of terms, you can then start to say the evidence that I have either conforms to or does not conform with this model, and you can start to drive reason and drive structure into your data lake, and then you can start asking interesting questions. Right.
Asking it interesting questions about the data that's in
about
it, or
the
about what the data in it means.
about both, right? So you can ask it interesting questions about the data that's in it, because now that conforms to a model which conforms to your business. All this data describes your business. So now you can start asking those interesting questions that start to say, how many products did I sell in Brazil? Right? How many products might I sell in Brazil, given that last year in the month of May, I sold this many products in Brazil? What's going to happen this year in the month of May? Right. And you can go down all these roads now that you can join all this data together and start to look at it across the world and in larger constructs, in larger contexts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let me give you a Alexis rundown of what I heard. We've got a bunch of data everywhere. That's the essence of data.
Yeah.
You can put it into a data lake where it can all be together and define a data model saying this is what it should look like.
Yeah.
And you can start asking what you have
Yeah.
different questions to help you figure something out.
Right. Exactly. That's a very good way of putting it. That's actually very good. The only addition I would make to that is people do try that. The pitfall of that is you're talking about an awful lot of data and an awful lot of places. So what we usually do, what I often talk with people about, is the idea of actually start with the question that you want to ask, and then go and collect the data that contains the answer. Right? Does that make sense? Because if you think about
So
a very
reverse
large,
engineer it.
well, reverse engineer it from the question. So I've got this interesting question that I want to answer. So ask that question. Now, what data do I need to put in my lake to answer that question? And put the model on just that area of the data. So I only collect. So instead of saying, I've got all this data, can I bring it all in together? I say, what is the data that I can answer this question? Let me collect that data into my data lake. Now, let me answer that question. Now, what's the next question you ask? Right? And then you go do it again. And your data lake grows now. And if you do it with putting this data model, the semantic layer of this data model in place so it grows, you start to be able to ask ever more interesting questions, and more of your data starts to coalesce into this data lake underneath this data model. If you do it with, let's collect all the data first, you can end up with, the colloquial term is the data swamp, right? So you've got this idea where you've got this swamp of data instead of this. Think of the lake. When I say lake, you think of this pretty landscape, pretty blue water. I can go on a boat and have a good time, and everything's great. I can even drink the water. It's clear enough to drink, right? If I don't know what's in it and I've just collected all this stuff together and I really don't know what's in it, then you think of a data swamp, right? And it's murky water, it's dirty, it's polluted, it's corrupt, it's all sorts of stuff. How many people do I really want to let in it? I don't want people swimming in that. I don't want you to drink it, right? I don't know what they're going to catch, right? So if you think about all the data in your organization, you start thinking about the cleansing function, the governance functions, and the way that we can make this swamp into this crystal clear, nice, beautiful place where we can actually get meaningful data out of, and we can trust it and we can understand it, and we're not finding monsters in our data, right? We're not finding Nessie in the corner and other things in the swamp.
Let's say a client comes to you and asks you the question that our listener just asked us. Hey, I've got all this stuff everywhere. What do I do? What would your answer to the client or the potential client?
So my first question is often a question of what what is your highest priority question? What are you trying to answer? What are you trying to get to? And you'll usually get either I want to know my customer base better, I want to know my products better, right? Or there's something that they're feeling pain with in terms of I don't understand my customer base, don't understand my products, etc. So there's usually this point of pain that they've got this burning question. I want to know my products better. I want to understand my products. I want to understand my customers. I want better cross-sell, upsell across my customers. I want to know what my customers are doing, or something like that. There's usually one of these fundamental questions. And what we then look at is start to say, okay, well, in what systems does data describing your customers live, reside, right, is stored, whatever word you want to use. Now, how do we pull that out? And what we also start to do is to define for them what one of these entities is. Does that make sense?
That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff to answer
Right.
to answer a question. One time you told me that we had a client who wanted to know, the CEO wanted to know who to send a Christmas card to.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you may have been joking about that, but when you were telling your story or your background here, everything kind of like clicked to that story you told me, and I was like, oh, like maybe that's what we do.
Well, it is to a certain extent, right? Because that's it. That was exactly one of the questions we were asked by one of our clients. Is our CEO wants to know who to send, who should be on his Christmas card list. There's a little bit of a euphemism, right? Because what he really wanted to know is, I want to know for this multi-divisional, multinational corporation, who are my most important clients,
Right.
right? Now, that business is actually a very, very diverse business spread across the world. It's in manufacturing, hospitality, it's also all sorts of divisions to it. So the construct of important has a different meaning for each division of the business.
Right.
So, and it's not purely financial. The largest customer might not be the most important customer in this division, right? Or it might, so that was the concept that we had to go into. So we had to go into, so what is the definition of a customer? What is the definition of customer for each business? When is the customer of this business also a customer of that business, right? So have you sold from two businesses to the same customer? And if so, how big is that customer now worth? And then it's right. And so you have to tease this apart from this multifaceted view of what does important mean and what does customer mean.
Right.
And it took them, so in answering that question, they were taking months. In fact, when we first engaged with them, the finance organization, and it's usually the financial organization that gets asked these questions, could not answer that question. They simply had no way of answering that question. Right. So we started the analysis, started the path to at least be able to tell them, get an idea of what their most important customers were, and build that list.
I mean, I guess that really speaks to what our listener was asking about, how,
Yeah,
there's so much stuff everywhere and we have to figure out how to get it to one
exactly.
understandable place.
Into one understandable place. And it's not just collecting the data. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's not just collecting the data together. It's also having the understanding within the data to start to say, this data has meaning when it comes together. Actually, that's what a lot of people do, is they put all the data in one place and they expect magic to happen. Suddenly I'm going to have these insights because I put all my data in one place. Well, that doesn't happen until you actually start to drill into that data and try and understand it. And that's where you get into advanced analytics, data mining. We talked about that once before as well. Data mining,
Right.
advanced analytics, even into AI and machine learning and that sort of thing to try and get understanding from this data. When is the data describing the same thing? When it is describing something interesting? Does that make sense?
This has been a great conversation, Data Dave. I feel like I've learned so much just in this last like 15 minutes. So I'm very, very thankful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any final comments to our listeners or to our question submitter who sent in this question?
No, I guess my final parting thought would be there is a journey here. There is a way to get through it. There is this. I said that at the very beginning, historically, we've been running very successful businesses on what we today would call very poor data, and that's true, right? That's the absolute truth. The comment I would make is that now we expect cleaner data. We expect to make better decisions based off of data clarity, to drive clarity in decisions, etc. There is a path here. There is a road through here that is very defined, or not defined, but very definable and very navigatable. Navigable is probably the right word. Very navigable to work through. And that's what we spend a lot of time through, is helping these companies who can't see the forest for the trees because they're used to looking at what they know of as truth, what they know of as their data, and they're confused and have difficulty in understanding how to drive this level of clarity that we're talking about. And what we do spend a lot of time through is working with them and trying to guide them through this, for want of a better phrase, this landscape of the data that they have.
Perfect. That's awesome. So, I'm just thanks for chatting with me today, Data Dave. My mind has been expanded. I feel like I've learned a ton today. Like even a ton that's just gonna help me with my job, not doing technical things with D3 Clarity. So I'm very, very happy about this. Well, thanks for chatting with me.
You're welcome. Thank
Everyone,
you.
have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
If you have a question for Data Dave, reach out to us via email at talktech@d3clarity.com. We'll be happy to answer your questions in the podcast. Thanks. This podcast has been brought to you by D3 Clarity. No one has time or patience to fix all of their data and infrastructure problems. D3 Clarity helps some of the world's most recognizable brands take the right action to turn their information into strategic profit making. For more information, go to D3 Clarity, that's the letter D, the number 3, the word clarity.com.